Imagine being murdered in cold blood right in front of your own house, and the police are forced to close the case because there isn't a single witness. The killers walk free, and your family is left with nothing but grief. But what if, 5 years later, a toddler walks into town and says, "I know exactly who killed me, because I am the victim"? It sounds like the plot of a Hollywood thriller, right? But this actually happened. Today, we are diving into one of the most chilling, scientifically investigated real reincarnation stories in history. A true crime cold case that was blown wide open by a 5-year-old boy remembering his past life. Stick around, because the verified physical evidence at the end of this story will absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about life and death. To understand this mind-bending mystery, we have to go back to August 28, 1983, in the bustling city of Agra, India. Suresh Verma was a successful, wealthy businessman who owned a popular electronic shop called Suresh Radios. He had a beautiful wife named Uma, 2 children, a large house, and a comfortable life. But on that late August evening, everything ended. As Suresh pulled his white Fiat up to the gates of his home and honked the horn, 2 unidentified men stepped out of the shadows. Before anyone inside the house could react to the sound of the horn, gunshots rang out. Suresh was shot point blank in the right side of his head, dying instantly. The killers vanished into the night. Because it was 1983 and the streets were relatively quiet at that hour, there were no witnesses. With 0 evidence and no leads, the local police hit a dead end. The case went cold, and Suresh's widow, Uma, was left to take over the family business alone. The story of Suresh Verma was supposed to end right there. Fast forward to 1985, in a quiet village called Bad, located just about 10 miles away from Agra. A boy named Toran Singh, affectionately called Titu by his family, was not even 2 years old yet, but he was already speaking in complete, clear sentences. For most parents, early talking is a sign of genius. But for Titu's parents, it quickly became a source of absolute terror. At just 2 years old, Titu started making bizarre, unsettling statements. He would randomly tell his father to go check on his wife and kids because he was worried about them. When his confused mother asked who he was talking about, the toddler replied that he was talking about his real family back in Agra. He would throw tantrums, crying hysterically, telling his parents, "You are not my real parents. I just ended up here. I need to go back to my real house." Initially, his family brushed it off as an overactive childhood imagination. But as 3 years passed, the situation escalated from weird to deeply disturbing. By 1988, 5-year-old Titu wasn't just claiming to have another family. He was giving highly specific details. He claimed his real name was Suresh Verma. He named his wife, Uma, and his 2 sons, Romu and Somu. He accurately described his radio shop in the city market, and most chillingly, he described exactly how he died, shot in the head by 2 men while sitting in his car. Titu's behavior was entirely, completely out of place for a village child. He carried himself with the posture, tone, and authority of a wealthy adult man. He openly mocked his family's poverty. He would look at his mother and say, "My wife Uma doesn't wear torn clothes like this. She wears expensive saris. Don't come near me in those dirty rags." He flat out refused to walk or take the bus, demanding his own car. He would literally pack his tiny clothes into a suitcase, threatening to run away to his bungalow in Agra because he couldn't stand living in a poor, dirty house anymore. For his parents, this was an absolute nightmare. In rural areas, the immediate assumption was demonic possession. Desperate for answers, they finally asked their eldest son, Ashok, to go to Agra and investigate. They needed to know if these claims were just a child's delusions, or if something far darker was at play. Ashok and a friend traveled to Agra, wandering the crowded streets of the local market. They searched for hours, finding nothing, ready to write the whole thing off as nonsense. Exhausted, they sat down to rest. That's when Ashok looked up and felt his blood run cold. Right across the street was a large sign, Suresh Radios. Ashok walked into the shop and found a woman working behind the counter. He introduced himself and asked for the owner. The woman introduced herself as Uma and explained that her husband, Suresh, had been murdered outside their home 5 years ago. Every single detail, the name, the wife, the business, the assassination, was a 100% match. When Ashok explained why he was there, Uma was completely paralyzed with shock. How could a 5-year-old boy from a remote village, who could barely write his own name, know the intimate details of a high-profile murder from before he was even born? Driven by intense curiosity and lingering skepticism, Suresh's parents and his widow, Uma, decided to travel to the village unannounced. They wanted to see if this boy would actually recognize them. When the car pulled up to the village house, Titu was eating. The moment he saw the strangers at the door, he dropped his food, ran toward them, and embraced them. He began shouting for his village parents to come out, introducing the strangers as his real parents. But when his eyes locked onto Uma, the 5-year-old boy suddenly became incredibly shy, acting exactly like a traditional Indian husband. He gestured for her to sit next to him and casually brought up a deeply private conversation they had shared at a local fair in Dholpur years ago. Uma was stunned. No one else on earth knew about that conversation. But the reunion quickly turned chaotic. Titu looked outside at the Maruti car they had arrived in and demanded to know what happened to his white Fiat. When they explained the Fiat was sold after his death, he angrily got into the new car, confidently turned on the radio, and, with a little help, even attempted to drive it. Something a 5-year-old village boy who had never been inside a car should not know how to do. When Suresh's family finally had to leave, Titu threw a massive fit, violently fighting with his village parents, demanding to go back to his real home. The situation had become a psychological crisis. Titu's village parents were terrified of losing their son to another family. To settle the truth once and for all, it was decided that Titu would be brought to Agra to face 3 ultimate tests to verify his past life memories. Test number 1 happened on the drive into the city. To trick the boy, the driver intentionally sped past the radio shop without stopping. Instantly, Titu yelled from the back seat, "Stop! You missed my shop! It's back there!" He recognized his own business while moving at high speed. Test number 2 took place inside the shop. Titu didn't walk in like a curious kid. He walked in like the boss. He sat on the owner's stool with the exact same body language Suresh used to have. He immediately pointed out which parts of the store had been recently renovated, and which parts remained exactly as he had left them 5 years ago. Test number 3 was the most emotional. Titu was taken to Suresh's old house. Before he arrived, Suresh's 2 sons were mixed into a large group of neighborhood children playing in the yard. Without missing a beat, Titu walked right into the crowd, picked out his 2 sons, and embraced them. By now, the media had caught wind of this incredible story, and it attracted the attention of elite scientists. Dr. N.K. Chadha from Delhi University, working alongside the legendary Dr. Ian Stevenson, a highly respected professor from the University of Virginia, famous for his rigorous scientific research into reincarnation, stepped in to investigate. Dr. Antonia Mills, a colleague of Stevenson, closely studied the boy. the researchers noted bizarre behavioral carryovers. Suresh had been known as an aggressive, short-tempered businessman. Titu displayed the exact same aggressive traits. During a trip to a Bengal market with Dr. Mills, 5-year-old Titu aggressively threatened a shopkeeper, warning him not to dare overcharge Antonia because she was his friend. But behavior wasn't enough. The scientific team needed physical proof, and they found it. Titu had been making a massive claim. He knew exactly who killed him. He stated that on the night of the murder, he had clearly seen the face of one of the shooters. He was a fellow businessman he personally knew. Armed with this impossible testimony, the Agra police made a bold move. They reopened the 1983 cold case and brought the businessman in for intense interrogation. Shockingly, under the pressure of being named by the reincarnated victim himself, the man broke down and confessed to the murder. But how do you legally prove this in a court of law? This is where the story takes its most mind-blowing turn. The researchers cross-referenced Suresh Verma's official 1983 autopsy report with Titu Singh's physical body. Suresh had been shot point-blank in the right side of the head, with the bullet exiting the other side. When the researchers shaved 5-year-old Titu's head, they found 2 distinct, unexplained birthmarks. The size, shape, and exact placement of those birthmarks perfectly matched the bullet's entry and exit wounds on Suresh's autopsy report. Dr. Ian Stevenson's research had long documented the phenomenon of fatal past life injuries manifesting as birthmarks, and here was undeniable, documented proof. Based on the confession triggered by Titu's memories and the staggering physical evidence, the court convicted the killers. A 5-year-old boy had successfully solved his own murder. So, what happens after you solve your own murder? Does a 5-year-old boy go back to being a husband and a father? Suresh's aging parents made a heartbreaking realization. Even though their son's soul had returned, his body belonged to a child. He could never truly be Uma's husband again, nor a father to his growing sons. They knew that if they kept pulling him into their world, Titu's new parents would lose their child, and Suresh's family would eventually have to experience the pain of losing their son all over again. Both families made the difficult decision to separate. Titu stayed in his village, carrying the heavy memories of 2 lifetimes, and focused on his education. Today, Toran Singh, the boy who was once Titu, and before that Suresh, is an assistant professor at Banaras Hindu University. He still remembers his past life. He still occasionally visits his former family in Agra. But he lives by a powerful philosophy. You cannot live 2 lives at once. What happened yesterday is gone. All we have is today. This incredible, verified case of reincarnation proves that life might not just be a straight line from birth to death. Sometimes it's a circle, where the end is just waiting to meet the beginning. And hey, if stories like this make you question reality just a little more, stick around, because the next one might bend your mind even further.